Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Um, this is LPRO02206, and then we are going to talk about a new lecture that is hazards and disasters. I'll be sharing the slides with you now. Okay, I hope you can see this on your screen. Okay. So hazards and disasters. This is these are like two bigger words. Hazard comes the first, and disaster comes the next. We'll go through both of these terminologies, and then there are other few which are related to this. So this is actually a whole cascade. There is a chain reaction. This is actually the the basic slide. This is where we need to understand. This is all about the hazard thing and emergency and disaster, catastrophe and extinction level event. So these are different events which involve like an emergency or a problem with the communities or with the animal populations and human populations both. And they this is their hierarchy. The first comes the hazard, and then there's an emergency, there is a disaster, and the bigger picture is the catastrophe, and then the last event is the extinction level where everything finishes away. Hazard is just a threat. So we'll go through these five terminologies and five situations one by one. First thing is hazard. Hazard is an agent which has the potential to cause harm to a vulnerable target, and hazards can be both natural or human induced. Sometimes natural hazards such as floods and drought can be caused by the human activity. For example, like we said, we did not really control the river, and then river overflew or broke the blocks at some point, and then it went into the human populated areas. That is a, I would call it a human induced, because the humans they did not take care. And then draft is another thing, is a bad management. They can be caused by the human activity, or there are other bigger things like bombing, and then other such activities which will lead to no cultivation, which will lead to no rain in that area. So a lot of things they come into this. So hazard again is an agent which has the potential to cause harm. So we were saying this is something which will cause harm, is not really causing to a vulnerable target, and hazards can be both natural or human induced. Okay. Then comes the emergency. We were saying emergency is a situation where local effects managed with local resources. For example, transport crashes, local floods, building collapses, etc. So okay, in all these five things, there's the involvement of the local bodies, of the government, of the human resource, and of the international things. So based on the level of involvement, and based on the level of impact, we categorize these things into these five different levels. So first level is that is hazard. So we're saying it's just something which has the potential to cause problem. Emergency is something which has already caused problem, and the effects they are local, and more importantly, they can be managed with local resources. For example, we said the transport crashes. Let's say there's God forbid an accident, and then the local government comes, local rescue people, they come in, and then they take over. This is managed with local resources. And then local floods, God forbid, if we come across, and building collapses. So if there is a poor building which collapses due to any reason, the impact is local. It could be unfortunately loss of lives, but the local governments and the local bodies, they can take over. The third thing is the disaster. So we're saying local or regional effects managed with local or regional resources. National resources may also be used, but damaging effects are not national. Surrounding social infrastructure intact. So this is like, I mean, God forbid, if there is something which prevails in a local region, there is no national level involvement, ideally speaking. In that case, or like, flood enters into the whole city, and then it involves like, couple of cities, where we'll call it. Let's say it involves like, Sheikhupura and Lahore, and that's how we call it, like, regional impact. So that's a disaster, okay. And or let's say we're saying, like, 3 4 cities they get involved, and then the national level involvement is still not like, there. It's only the provincial involvement. So province level problems, they come under the heading of disaster. Then the fourth thing is the catastrophe. So we're saying event with national implications. Local, with national implications, local and regional response impossible or inadequate. Okay, this is a little bit like, complex, where we're saying that local body or regional or province level efforts, they they're not enough. They're inadequate, or they are not enough to control the whole event. There comes the national involvement event with national implications. Okay, so we're saying, for example, there was an earthquake in 2015. If you people remember, I don't know if you people remember or not, but it's 2005. It was 8th October, 2005, and I was the final year graduate at that time, and we were standing like in our university, near that canteen. It used to be an old canteen; is no more there, and we were waiting for our tour to be um, um, to start. And then we were planning to move out of the university, with one of the teachers, and there came that horrible earthquake, and which has taken a lot of lives, and which has caused irreparable damages to the country and to those societies as well. So that in that case, the local response from those people, or local response from the local government or from the provincial government, was absolutely not enough at all. It was impossible, totally impossible for them to tackle the situation at their own. So national level response was required. So military came into action. The central government, the federal government came into action. People from across the whole country, they became active, and then they traveled all the way with food and stuff. We were also among those people. Luckily, I feel proud that we, at least, I mean, we could not make like a bigger difference, but at least we were able to feed some of them, a few of them. And we took a lot of stuff, which university and then the private people, they had managed. There were 5 buses full of the stuff, and we traveled 30 people on those to distribute that stuff. And that is called as catastrophe. Okay. And then we were saying that many governmental and social systems, they are affected. Complex long-term consequences, they may involve multiple countries. In this case, multiple countries, they were not involved. It was only the Pakistan and then our northern areas. Examples, I gave one bigger example from Pakistan, and then there are other examples from other parts of the world. That's massive New Madrid zone earthquake, and then massive pandemic, and then 1976 Tangshan earthquake in China. These are few examples of that catastrophe. So the biggest and live example, which all of you do understand, is the earthquake from October 2005 in our northern areas, which involved the Jammu Kashmir, Azad Kashmir, and then Indian occupied Kashmir as well, and the Bagh area. All of this was involved, and unluckily they are still struggling to go back to the normal. Things they have settled quite a bit, but of course damages are there. Then the last one, the fifth one, is the extinction level event. Okay, extinction level event means extinction. Let's understand the word extinction. That means loss of everything. They do things, they finish away from the face of earth. Okay. Okay, how do they finish from the face of earth? For example, we're saying, let's say there goes an atomic war, atom bombs. If you people remember the atom bombs, which were dropped by America on Japan, on Hiroshima. So Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So they were atom bombs. The atom bombs of this era, today's bombs, they say, maybe 1,000 times more powerful than the ones at the times. So just imagine if there goes an atomic war. Forgive me. Sorry. So we're saying that if there goes an atomic war, what will happen? The whole things, the whole human race, or everything, which is living or dead, will be vanished. That will be cleaned, properly cleaned by those atomic bombs. At least Pakistan and India, they'll be gone. Will not see those if, God forbid, this happens, because the war will not stay. So both of the countries, they have lot of these warheads. So we're saying that extinction level events are the ones which result in loss of all human life, and there is no effective response available whatsoever. It doesn't matter even if the multinational involvement is there. If the whole world is involved, still there, that's not enough. You drop a bomb and then you forget about the repairs. Oh no, no, it's a joke if I say, okay, I'll drop a bomb and then I will repair it. No, it's not a joke. These days, things, they are extremely powerful. The other examples of the extinction level event are that massive meteorite strike, Yellowstone, Colorado super explosion, and then binational or multinational thermonuclear warfare. This is the same thing we spoke earlier. So these are the things which will lead to these series of the problems. Um, okay. Then moving on to other, there are we different approaches to the different situations. They say or let's call it the planning approach. How do you plan that, God forbid, if you come across such situation, what will you do? So what is the plan? The SOPs, So the all hazards versus hazard unique planning approach. So there is these are two approaches. One is that all hazards means no matter what, this is what you have to do. So there will be written, okay, you take this, you evacuate people, and then you do this, and you do this. This is no matter what, irrespective of the type of the hazard, one has to follow that plan only. And the other approach is that hazard unique planning approach. That is based on the type of the hazard. Okay, God forbid if the hazard is is a threat of a flood, or the other on the other hand there is a threat of war. So both of the hazards, they're different. So there's a different situation. So U.S. emergency management uses an all hazard approach to planning and preparedness because core response management systems are similar for most disaster types. Okay, and it reduces confusion if all responses have the same basic organization, and it's less expensive. So they're saying that instead of having 10 SOPs, let's have one SOP that which one need to follow, and according to that they can move on. Then there is the second part, the downside of the all hazard approach. What will be the negative points. So the first, these points, they are the positive sides of the all hazards planning approach. And then where it's less expensive, there's no confusion, and then the management systems, they're the same. So they say, okay, let's follow one paper. The downsides of the all hazards approach that has limited ability to properly prepare for and manage events that require full participation by many private and NGOs, which are not subject to government authority structures, and it delegates specific event type planning to an annex. They're saying that, for example, sometimes you need the help of community as well, and among the community there are private organizations there, and there are non-governmental organizations like NGOs. So if they are following just one approach, then sometimes you may not be able to follow the concerned people in that case, and it delegates specific event type planning. Use of hazard specific approach for catastrophe. Okay, what are the advantages of hazard specific approach? It allows greater depth for planning of hyper complex events, so that the planning does not have to be initiated after event onset, and it allows better focus on some specific event types with peculiar parameters such as pandemics. So it says that, let's say there comes, God forbid, a disease. Uh, okay, disease is something which starts spreading, all over, and there is, on the other hand, there's a flood. So the response of the government or response of the institutions in both cases is different, and different institutions they are involved in that case. Therefore, the hazard specific approaches, they are always on top, apart from having a bit of the confusion. If you have better trained staff, then that confusion can be overcome very easily. And then and if you have enough resources, and there's no shortage of money or something, or there's no shortage of the equipment, then hazard specific approach is always on top. Okay. So we're saying then hazard specific approach for catastrophe. Okay, catastrophe. There's another example of catastrophe, that is these days. What is that? Anybody who would just pay a bit of the attention. COVID, coronavirus, COVID-19. That is all over the world, is not going away. Is coming back again and again, and then continuously on the strike. So therefore, that is something which is involving the whole world, which is not problem of one local area. It's not problem of a province, not problem of a country. It's problem of the whole world now, right now, and that is catastrophic. And it has changed the whole world. It has really destroyed and punched back very hard onto the economies. Um, so we're saying that hazard unique planning allows the development of a single plan to serve many jurisdictions. And assuming the same massive earthquake in New Madrid, a seismic zone affecting 8 states, scores of cities, and hundreds of countries, what hundreds of counties, what advantages might come from having a single earthquake plan for the entire area instead of having 200 plus earthquake and access to 200 plus jurisdictional all hazards plan? How can the two approaches complement each other? So this is normally what I would like you people to discuss. That they're saying that there are two situations, or there's only one situation, that there is a seismic zone where there are 8 states and hundreds of counties, means the smaller areas. Okay, in those areas, let's say there's an earthquake. So what would you want to follow? Do you want to follow all hazards plan, or do you want to go with the specific plan? How will you see that? You people need to work on this, take a couple of minutes originally, and then plan and think, and then come back. Okay. So there are few examples of that, 1755 Lisbon, Portugal. There was an earthquake and tsunami. 8 plus Richter scale earthquake struck Lisbon at 9:40 a.m. on All Saints Day, followed by a massive tsunami some 40 minutes later, and fire followed that was uncontrollable, between 60 to 100,000 deaths out of a population of 270,000. So nearly half of the population was gone. So Lisbon and many other coastal communities, they were destroyed. So this is a catastrophe. Okay. Another example is that all important docks and port facilities were lost along much of the coast, and long-term effects of that substantial economic decline for several decades, decimated Portuguese colonial ambitions, and then greatly exacerbated internal political tensions in Portuguese. So there were a lot of long-term effects of that same. Then Hurricane Mitch 1998. This was a Category 5 storm that passed over Honduras for 3 days in late October in 1998. So it dropped over 3 meters of rain on Honduras. 3 meter rain is something which is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. So we're talking about a few mm rain and the whole Lahore chokes. And just imagine 3 meters, Lahore will drown for sure, 100%. Massive floods and landslides killed between 10 to 16,000 people, and 8,000 they're still missing. So most of the country's bridges and many roads they were washed out. Of course, the 3 meter 10 feet rain is something unbelievable. Um, but this Mitch Honduras hurricane, the coastal banana plantations they were wiped out, topsoil washed to sea, and it takes a minimum 7 years to regrow banana trees, and farming production is still lagging. Infrastructure rebuilding still underway with international help, and estimates 30 years of lost economic development. Okay, we'll stop here, and we'll come back next inshallah next week with the same lecture, and we'll finish this thing. Okay. Okay, I think we'll finish this lecture quickly. If there's not much remaining, I'll go through this. So there was draft famine in India 1965-67 monsoon rain essentially failed for 3 years, and there was 1.5 million people who died despite foreign food assistance. Local and regional emergency professionals they may be victims and unable to fulfill roles, and localities may be isolated for an extended period of time without internal capabilities. Then potential carry effect on US emergency management. The decisions may be made at federal or distant regional levels without local input, and emergency management personnel may find the complexity of the event beyond their capacity to manage. I had given a class assignment. Assume you were the emergency manager in GB, Gilgit Baltistan. A Richter scale 7-point earthquake has shaken the entire zone, ranging from Islamabad to Gilgit. Hamza Valley is severely damaged with a huge percentage of the unreinforced buildings down and bridges collapsed, landsliding along Karakoram Highway. Um, And then parts of towns are being flooded due to a water course change in Humza River. Communications and transportation in the entire region are inoperative, and power outages covers entire GB region. The questions: what kind of assistance will be available? What kinds of pre-planning would you want to have already happened, and with whom? So this is your class assignment which you need to do. So there are this is the collision point of continental plates, where the collision point this is located near Chalt Valley on the Karakoram Highway, some 53 kilometers north of Gilgit town. I have been to this place, and then this is that beautiful lake, Atabad Lake. This is again another view of that. Culture and definitions of catastrophe. These are different things which you need to understand. So bigger picture as the current population in the US and Europe have little personal experience with catastrophe and may exhibit disbelief that such a thing could befall occur them. It, and now I believe they do have all of these things. I would like to show you some of the pictures from this. this valley. So this I have been to this place. This was KVO, Multi-Purpose Cooperative Society, Sost Gojal Hunza, and we have been there with one of my professors. And this was this is an event which is from we had to sedate one of the snow leopards who had been rescued there already there and was ill, was suffering. So we went to rescue. This is me after this, um, after the dark gun was prepared, and then if you see this in the corner is the snow leopard. This was in a smaller cage, and this is me. I to be shot, and the shot has been done. And this thing, if you see that pink thing, this is the because he was running. So this is the what we call the dart which had been put into the thigh. One of my batchmates and my class fellows, Dr. Tanveer Bhai, is with us. He's basically expert in genomics, and there's another Professor Saab. He's his boss as well. Um, so he was our former dean of the genetics department as well, and now they are working in another university. Um, these are from the similar thing, and then we took some samples, like a blood sample, if you see that, and then we had run some genomic studies and some normal studies. And of course, this is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, one of the most beautiful animals on earth. Later in the evening, when we came back, and then the animal had already started to eat, alhamdulillah. So he was doing fine. This is one of the lizards, local lizards in that area. This was a deep valley. I have forgotten the name of that. This is in Gilgit Baltistan region. This was somewhere 4 hours deep in the valley, and this was one of the glaciers which started melting, and I wished I did not survive. I won't survive. And you can see मैं क्लास में 2 मिनट बता रहा हूँ. And this is that famous Athabad Lake, and we were crossing that with our car on top of it. And these are our two professors. Um, this was a kid I loved most. The picture I loved most was this kid. Absolutely wonderful. So not a show off, but just for you to see that I have been through these things, and you should understand. Politicians and citizens, they are often unwilling to dedicate funding to threats they cannot see in the immediate future. Um, Prepare for events people don't want to think about. 8th October 2005 earthquake. This is the one which we spoke earlier, and some more than 50,000 people they were involved. 5 million people they were homeless, and loss of numerous bridges crossing the roads in between valleys, as well as destruction of major oil, gasoline, and natural gas pipelines serving the areas. This was such a bigger event. And then there were a few other definitions which you can read out from different parts. Thank you very much for staying, and then for listening. That's the end of the lecture on hazards and disasters. Thank you.